Missing children? What happened? I was 16 when I became a missing child, not because someone took me, but because my dad's new wife wanted me gone. It started small, locking the fridge, forgetting to wash my clothes, making rules only I had to follow. Dad was always working, never saw what was happening, but that night everything changed. I came home from school to find my room empty. Everything I owned was in garbage bags on the curb, soaked from the rain. My mom's photo album, my grandmother's blanket, all ruined. When I asked why, she smiled and said I must have done it myself, called me crazy in front of my dad, said I was acting out just like my mom used to. That's when I knew she wouldn't stop until I broke, so I made a choice. I waited until 3 a.m., took those wet garbage bags, and walked to my friend's house. His parents took one look at me and let me crash on their couch. The next morning, my stepmom filed a missing person report, claimed I was unstable, probably suicidal, even cried on local news about her beloved stepdaughter, told everyone how she'd tried to be the mother I never had. 3 weeks passed. Then my friend's parents sat me down, said they couldn't hide me anymore. Police were asking questions. They had to let me go. I called my dad one last time. Please, I said, just listen to me. He sighed. Your stepmom's pregnant. We're having a real family now. Maybe it's better if you stay gone. So I did. Some missing kids are exactly where their families want them to be. I found my mom's old diary in my stepdad's office, and what I discovered changed everything. I was cleaning out boxes in the attic when I found it, a small blue notebook with flowers on the cover. I thought it was just another photo album, but when I opened it, I saw my mom's handwriting from 15 years ago. I knew I shouldn't read it, but one sentence caught my eye. I can't tell anyone the real reason I left Mark. Mark was my real dad, who mom always said abandoned us when I was 3. My hands were shaking as I kept reading. The truth hit me like a truck. My dad hadn't abandoned us at all. Mom left him because she was scared. He had a gambling problem and lost their entire savings, their house, everything. She wrote about how he begged her to stay, promised to change, but she couldn't risk it with a baby to protect. But here's the crazy part. My stepdad Dave knew about this diary. I found a note stuck between the pages in his handwriting. Use this if she ever tries to leave. He was keeping it as insurance, threatening to tell me the truth if mom ever divorced him. I took pictures of every page and drove straight to my mom's work. When I showed her, she broke down crying. She admitted Dave had been using this secret to control her for years. She was too ashamed to tell me the truth about dad and too scared of losing me if she left Dave. I hugged her and said, Mom, you protected me once by leaving dad. Now let me protect you. We packed her bags that night. Dave came home to an empty house and a note that said, I found the diary. Game over. Now mom and I are starting over. And yesterday, I got a text from my real dad. Turns out he's been sober for 12 years, waiting for a chance to make things right.
I was the meanest dad ever, until my daughter's drawing changed everything. Every morning I'd yell about unmade beds and messy rooms. My 8-year-old daughter would cry, but I thought I was teaching her responsibility. Life isn't easy, I'd say. You need to learn. I never noticed how she'd flinch when I raised my voice. Then one day, while cleaning her room, I found her art folder from school. The assignment was draw your happy place. Other kids drew parks, beaches, and playgrounds filled with friends. My daughter, she drew herself alone in her room, surrounded by perfectly arranged toys. Her teacher's note broke me. Emma said this is her happy place because when everything's perfect, Daddy doesn't get angry. The paper shook in my hands as years of strict parenting crashed down around me. I sat on her tiny bed and cried. All this time I thought I was preparing her for life, but I was just making her afraid of living it. That night when she came home, I hugged her tight and promised to do better. We started small. If she spilled something, we cleaned it together, laughing instead of yelling. When her room was messy, we turned cleanup into a game. I learned that a gentle try again worked better than any punishment. Last week, she brought home another drawing. This time, it showed us having a picnic in the park, both of us smiling. Her happy place wasn't about perfect toys anymore. It was about us, together. Sometimes the best parenting lesson isn't teaching your kid to be better, it's learning to be a better parent yourself.
I thought my 6-year-old daughter was obsessed with eating people until I discovered the truth that made me laugh for days. I was folding laundry when I found her tablet open to some disturbing searches: how to cook humans, where to find fresh humans, and best humans to eat. My heart nearly stopped. As I scrolled, more searches appeared. Soft humans, crunchy humans, sweet humans with sprinkles, how to make humans taste better, and can I keep humans in the freezer? I started panicking, my hands shaking. Should I call a child psychologist? Was my sweet little girl who still slept with her stuffed unicorn secretly planning something horrifying? I spent the day watching her play, trying to figure out how to approach this situation. That evening, I nervously took her to the grocery store, hoping the casual environment would help me bring it up. My daughter skipped along beside me, humming her favorite cartoon song, while I rehearsed different ways to start this conversation. In the baking aisle, she suddenly squealed with excitement. Daddy, look! It's the humans I've been searching for everywhere! She pointed straight at the gingerbread human display. Rows of cookie-cutting shapes, decorating kits, and pre-made gingerbread humans in festive boxes. She'd been looking up gingerbread cookie recipes for her school bake sale this whole time. I hugged her tight and bought her the biggest cookie decorating kit, plus extra sprinkles and icing. Now whenever she announces she's hungry for humans, I just smile and remind myself to check the full context before panicking. What did your parents say to you as a kid that still affects you today? I was 7 when my dad looked me dead in the eyes and said, the world won't care if you're tired. Never let them see you cry. I took those words to heart. When my grandma died, didn't cry. When I broke my arm in football, not a tear. When my first girlfriend cheated, nothing. I became known as the robot in high school, the emotionless one, the guy who could take anything, and I was proud of it, until last month. I'm a firefighter now, and we responded to an apartment fire. Found a little boy hiding in his closet, terrified. As I carried him out, he suddenly grabbed my arm. Wait, my sister is still inside. My blood ran cold. We'd already cleared that entire floor. There was no sister. His mother rushed over as I set him down, tears streaming down her face. She hugged him tight and whispered, it's okay, baby. You can cry. Your father was wrong. Boys don't have to be strong all the time. My stomach dropped. The kid looked up at me, still trembling, and said, my dad always said crying is for babies, but he's not here anymore. I broke down right there, in front of my whole crew. 20 years of locked up tears came flooding out. Called my dad that night, told him everything. There was a long silence. Then I heard him crying for the first time in my life. Son, he choked out, I've been trying to find a way to tell you. That was the worst advice I ever gave. I was repeating what my old man said to me. Spent my whole life being strong, and all it did was make me miss out on really living.
My husband got a paternity test on our daughter and it came back negative, but I never cheated. Now he wants to divorce? I was sitting in our kitchen when he slammed the papers down on the counter. The lab results were right there in black and white. 0% probability of paternity. My hands shook as I read it over and over, hoping the words would somehow change. I never cheated, I whispered, but he just stared at me with this cold look I'd never seen before. We'd been together since college. 8 years total, married for 4. I'd only been with 2 people before him, both in high school. There was literally no one else who could be our daughter's father. We were actively trying to get pregnant when she was conceived. Then explain this, he said, pointing at our 2-year-old playing in the living room. We both have blue eyes. She has brown. That's genetically impossible. I tried to remember my high school biology, but honestly, genetics always confused me. My mom had brown eyes, my dad had blue. I thought maybe it skipped generations or something. The worst part was how he'd been acting for months before this. He'd become paranoid and suspicious, constantly asking to see my phone, staying late at work, barely interacting with our daughter. He'd set up a home office in our spare room and would lock himself in there for hours. When I asked what he was doing, he'd just say, work stuff, and change the subject. He'd been pulling away from Emma too. This man who used to read her bedtime stories every night suddenly couldn't be bothered to help with bath time. I thought he was just stressed about his new promotion, but now I realized he'd been planning this the whole time. I want you out of the house by Friday, he said that morning. I've already talked to a lawyer. When I refused to leave, he locked me out of our bedroom. I spent that night in Emma's room, holding her while she slept, wondering how our perfect little family had fallen apart so fast. The next few days were a blur of desperate phone calls to lawyers and DNA testing companies. Everyone kept telling me the same thing. Home paternity tests can be wrong, but rarely. Laboratory errors happen maybe 1 in 10,000 times. I begged him to do another test, a more comprehensive one, but he refused. I'm not wasting more money on this, he said. The results are clear. His family started treating me differently too. His mom, who used to call me every Sunday, suddenly stopped reaching out. His sister unfriended me on Facebook. Word was spreading that I was a cheater and no one wanted to hear my side of the story. I felt completely alone. My own family lived across the country, and I'd lost most of my college friends after graduation. The few mom friends I had started acting weird around me, like infidelity might be contagious. Emma could sense the tension too. She kept asking why daddy was sad, why he wouldn't play with her anymore. How do you explain to a 2-year-old that her father thinks she isn't really his daughter? A week passed, then another. He was sleeping in the guest room, coming home late, barely speaking to either of us. I caught him packing boxes in his office one night, moving his things out slowly. That's when I decided to call my mom, desperate for any kind of support or advice. Maybe she'd have some insight about family genetics, or just be able to help me figure out what to do next. Mom, I need to ask you something important about our family, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. About genetics and eye color and Dad. There was this long, horrible silence on the other end of the phone. Honey, she finally said, her voice shaking, there's something I never told you about your father. My heart stopped. Your dad, the man who raised you, he's not your biological father. I had an affair early in our marriage. You have brown eyes just like him, just like your real biological father. Everything suddenly made perfect sense, and my marriage might actually be salvageable after all.